Want the whole sports story in Northern Colorado, the state and the country? Tune into The Hull Show, weekdays noon to 2 and 1310 KFKA. Live from the CRP 4x4 studios, this is Mornings with Gail on 1310 KFKA.
Billy Joel has his own XM Sirius station now. There's ads on it on the air. And it's this song. He talks about the fact that when he was a kid, he used to play, as we all did. Do you remember the drum solo from Wipeout? He used to play that on his desk in school, and he just took it and translated it over to the piano. Just a little factoid for your amusement this morning. 8:09 now, 1310 KFKA, 1310 KFKA.com. But turning to more serious issues when it comes to the ongoing battle and the debate as to how we're going to fix our damn roads. Thank you, Independence Institute President John Caldera, for that catchphrase. But 22 days, ballots in the mail, so you should be getting your ballot this week. But you've got a number of important decisions to make. Chief among them, the transportation ballot standoff of 2018. For analysis, we're joined this morning by Michael Fields. Michael Fields is Executive Director of Colorado Rising Action. A pleasure to have you back on the show, Michael.
Good to be back on, Gail.
So, it's interesting, and this is just an aside, but we got into a conversation this morning about the disastrous impact of Prop 112. And Micah, my producer, and I were kind of batting it back and forth, and it's kind of like, we won't have to fix the damn roads if Prop 112 passes because, well, it's going to be crickets out on the roads.
Yeah, these ballot issues impact each other in a lot of ways. If our income tax goes up, if, they wipe, all these jobs out of the state with 112. I think the one thing that people do agree on in the state, and there's not much, but that's that our roads need to get fixed. There's two, ballot issues on the ballot that take a different approach, but I think we can all unite in saying that our roads are nowhere near where they need to be.
Absolutely. Let's drill it down. So let's start with Prop 19, then we'll move to Prop 110, and then we'll compare and contrast, time permitting.
Sure. So Prop 109, this is the one the Independence Institute proposed, John Caldera, and basically what it does is it says that we need to use existing funds in our general fund in order to bond, and basically it would be a $260 million a year bond payment, and that would bond for about $3.5 billion worth of projects. And these projects would all be road funding, only state highway funding, and 66 projects that are on the CDOT top tier list, and that's what this would go to. And so it's specific in terms of which projects would be funded. CDOT has this top-tier list. There's 66 projects on it. And really, there's only one way to do big projects, and that's to bond. As a conservative, I don't like bonding that much, but there's no way to get all that money in one place in order to do this. And really, there's been a roadmap for this approach before. There was an interview that John Caldera did with previous Governor Owens, who did something called trans bonds in 1999, and it was a 20-year project. Or it was a 15-year project, and basically what happened was they took this 180 or so $1 million, they bonded it, they fixed stuff like T-Rex, and it was a big success. So I think the roadmaps there, Governor Owens is still talking about how great it went, and we can do that.
Michael, and check me if I'm wrong on this, but I keyed in on your statement that, I think one of the primary attributes of Prop 109 is to use existing funds in the general fund. Well, unfortunately, and maybe it's just my misperception, but it seems as though existing funds kind of just go up in smoke in the general fund. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I think a lot of it, if you look over the last 20 years or so, a lot of it continues to go to healthcare. And I think, that's a discussion that we have to have because healthcare used to be 27% of the budget. Now it's 34 to 35% of the budget. But basically, last year and the year before that, our budget has gone up by about 1.4 or 1.5 billion dollars a year. That's the increase that we've seen. And all we're asking for is $260 million a year in order to fix the thing that is most important to people, that they poll the highest. Say we need to fix our roads. And so the budget, if you listen to people at the legislature, you'd think that the budget's going down every year. It's like, no, it's going up by $1.5 billion. And you're going to say that we can't find, $260 million in order to bond to fix our roads. So I think, the big thing is having that discussion, saying, where is this money going? We want it to go to classrooms. We want it to go to roads. What else is it going to every year? And so that's putting pressure on the legislature. And I think, if you vote for 109, it forces the legislature to prioritize roads.
Michael, how are you doing on time this morning?
I'm okay.
Okay, because what I'd like to do is just take care of some business here and then come back and talk a little bit about 110, compare and contrast, and then get your overall take on what you're hearing, how you think this is all going to go.
Sounds great.
As our conversation continues this morning with Michael Fields, Executive Director of Colorado Rising Action. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Michael?
I think that is. I know John pretty well, and he's pushing this thing on 109, and then you have the chamber and some other kind of heavy hitters with a lot of money pushing 110. And I want to remind everybody, your ballots, they go out today, so you should be getting them tomorrow, the next day, maybe Thursday at the latest. But I would say, it's important to vote early and then go encourage other people to vote because turnout's really important.
Absolutely. So we covered 109 before the break. Let's get into 110. And then I want to get into all of the combinations and permutations of same, because both could pass, both could fail, one or the other could pass, on and on.
Yeah, so Prop 110, this is a sales tax increase. So it would be a 0.62% increase. And basically, what a lot of people like Mayor Suthers down in Colorado Springs are saying is that, sales tax increases, you have to worry about competition. And so, when he's talking about his city looking at, close to 9% sales tax, combined all the way up, like it's going to be hard to compete. But basically what this one would do is take that increase in sales tax. It would be about $766 million the first year. And it would split it up, and 45% would go to roads on the state level, 40% would go to local roads, and then 15% to multimodal. So that's bike lanes, that's transit, and basically would split it in those three different directions. And it would bond for $6 billion. And so, 109 was for about $3.5 billion. This is for $6 billion. But it's a sales tax increase, and I was a little bit surprised that they moved forward with it, given the fact that the proponents of this pulled it last year, and it was 17% underwater at that point. And so the fact that they've been able to raise millions of dollars, that they're making a push on this, is interesting. I don't think that it's likely to pass. We can get into that a little bit more. But, that's basically what Prop 110 does, is it splits and sends a significant amount of money to that multimodal, bike lanes, transit, et cetera.
Is it tax fatigue? Is that why you think it won't pass?
I think, basically we have a $30 billion budget, and I think most people say, look, if we're sending them $30 billion, if there's over $11 billion in the general fund, why can't we fix our roads? They look at that. I think people look at that as a core function. Also, I think statewide tax increases are very hard because people don't feel like they know where all the money is going. Local issues, like in Colorado Springs, one passed. It was sunsetted for 5 years. It had specific projects on it. People are more likely to vote for those, but statewide tax increases are very, very hard to pass.
Well, I can't help but think, in rural areas of the state, heck, even in northern Colorado, the concern is that the bulk of that funding is going to go to metro area projects.
Yeah, and I think that's, something they've seen over years. You talk to people in rural Colorado, and they say everything, that's roads, all kind of funding always goes to Denver or, certain areas around, Front Range if you're on the western slope. So I think that is something to say, you know what, we'd rather fund something closer to us that we know is going to go to what we need. And I think you see that in education, in transportation, et cetera. So I think that's a big part. And places like Colorado Springs that have just raised their taxes to fix their roads, they're going to be a net loser in terms of, what they're really going to get out of this. And that's why Mayor Suthers is so far against this. But I think the key with this, too, is these are both propositions. So they need 50%. They're statutory changes, where amendments on your ballot need 55%. So I want to make sure people aren't, cheering something that they want to pass at 52 and it has to get 55. But these ballot issues will pass with 50% of the vote.
Not crazy about amendments, but that's a conversation for another time. So let's talk about the various scenarios, because it's interesting. Both could pass, both could fail, one or the other could pass. So what is the result of those possibilities?
So let's start with, if both fail, we're basically back where we started. And that would say, if we're going to fix our roads, the legislature needs to come up with a plan with the existing budget in order to fix our roads. So they punted in years in the past, so we don't know what will happen if they both fail, but it would be forced on the legislature to make tougher choices. If both of them pass, basically there would be a new revenue stream with the sales tax. They would be forced to do both things. So basically they would have to look at it, figure it out, and say, is there overlap? Is there not on this? But we would have a new revenue stream, but they would be forced to do both things, basically. So there would be a lot of money for the roads. So I saw somebody in the paper yesterday who was like, look, they want roads fixed. They said, we want both of them to pass. And then obviously if one or the other passes, those projects, would either split into a third if it is 110, or it would go to those 66 projects of CDOT's top tier list if 109 only passes. So I think it's most likely that 110, the sales tax increase, loses. I haven't seen polling over low 40s on that. So I don't think that one's going to pass. The other one is probably mid 50s or so. It could still lose. But I think, there's people like Colorado Concern that's behind it. Mayor Suthers is pushing it, former Governor Owens. There's some people out there talking about it. But I would be very surprised if both pass. Very surprised if 110 passes at all.
A lot of talk on the national level, but you have to wonder if it's going to trickle down. After we came out of the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings and the sideshow that was voter enthusiasm, typically party in power, the voters are kind of like, meh. What are you hearing as far as voter turnout in Colorado?
I think it's uncertain for the reasons that you were talking about. Look, the left has been pretty motivated, since Trump became president, to weigh in on this election. So you see that in some early polling, but definitely the Kavanaugh, confirmation debacle motivated conservatives. Now, does that last for the next 3 weeks? Right. I don't know. Yeah. But then ballot issues too. I mean, I think historically, if you look in Colorado in 2013, there was Amendment 66 on the ballot, a huge, $1 billion tax increase that drove turnout of conservatives. And so I think, if ballot issues, especially with 112 out there, that could definitely help even things out with getting conservatives out there. If they're talking about their pocketbook, the economy, the Kavanaugh type stuff, I think it's unknown at this point.
Definitely a lot at stake. Michael Fields, thanks so much for being so generous with your time and insights. Hope to catch up with you again. We're 22 days out. Michael Fields is Executive Director of Colorado Rising Action. And where can we learn more?
The ColoradoRisingAction.org is our website. And thanks for having me on again.
You bet.